straight out of the T-Dot.
That's what it is.
Live from the 6 boroughs.
Don't go nowhere.
For sure. Welcome to Standing in the 6 with your hosts, Michael and Constantine.
Good morning, everyone. And I mean, good morning could also mean good afternoon, depending on the time of the day you are, or what part of the country you're at, or even in the evening. But today we got a very special guest. It's a returning guest, Mr. Ron Chhinzer from the Toronto Police Service. I actually said association. Was there ever an association, or was I just making that up?
I'm part of the association,
Okay.
but that's something different than this.
Okay, see, and that's again a potential screw up, but I caught myself. But just to go a little further, he is from the Integrated Gang Prevention Task Force, and we had him on the show in 2019, and that was an eye opener. And Ron, I'll say this: we've had you on the show one time. We've had a couple of communication.
Yep.
But to me, it's like I've known you all my life.
Oh, thanks, man.
That's how it feels. Like, you know, it's just one of those things.
They say, game recognizes game.
That's right.
Hood recognizes hood.
That's right.
Well, listen, I feel the same with you guys, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't skipped a beat.
Yeah, man.
It was April of 2019 that I think was here.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'll say this, just to kind of dive right in. It was last year, April 2020. I reached out to Ron. I don't know if I told you this, Mike. I called you up. And the reason why I called you up is because we just found out through COVID that we don't have any more clients because they all disappeared. And that's kind of the recurring theme. They disappeared. COVID basically put a big halt. And I called you up just to let you know, hey, listen, in my mind, this scene was playing out that there was going to be mass chaos happening on the streets of Toronto. And I reached out to Ron to say, hey, man, listen, if you guys need any supports whatsoever, Sentinel is here. And it was in that time that you also told me that you actually had to go on the front line.
Yeah, I had to go back to the streets, man. Right after, but before we get to me, I'll tell you, I got to say this, man, because it's so important to say. When I first came in here in April of 2019, right, you guys had a great setup and a shop, because I get a lot of requests to come out to things like this.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I've had to say no to a lot of them, right, because I just don't have the time. And sometimes you go up there and it's not as a professional setup. So I was super impressed then. But now walking into where you guys are today, I'm so impressed with how far you guys have come in a time when a lot of people, unfortunately, due to reasons beyond their control, have lost everything, lost their dreams, lost their passions. But just speaking to you before this started, the way you guys innovated, how you guys grew this, how you invested in your people, I'm so impressed. And I wanted to make sure we bring that out before
I appreciate
we move
that.
on to me, because honestly, this is exactly what it's about.
Right.
So for me, coming back to the front line, it was a rough time, man. COVID hit. It was right after George Floyd.
Yeah.
So, you have that George Floyd, you have COVID hit, and they needed help on the front lines, because we were, we wanted to have a contingency in place for operations where what if a cop gets COVID? How does that impact people? So they had to draw people back to the front line. I went back to the front line, and I'm glad I did.
Okay.
For both of those experiences of what life was like on the front lines of policing after something like George Floyd.
How long was it for you?
12 weeks before I got back on the road?
Yeah.
About 4 years before that.
Okay.
But in total, I think in my career, so I've been a police officer for 15 years. I've spent half of that in uniform and half without a uniform.
Yeah.
But going back, man, I love it. It's just a reconnection point. And going back after that, it reconnects you with, what's actually happening. Like every other organization, right? You have your front lines, you have your front-facing staff.
Right.
Even if you're looking at McDonald's, right? It's the most important person to have communication with and to know what's up is their cashier.
Yes.
They're dealing with the customer, right? That's your revenue stream. With us, we don't have a revenue stream, but our customers' people. And to understand operations at the very top, you got to understand operations on the front end. So for me, just like you guys, I looked at it as an opportunity to come back in, reconnect, see what's up, and see how we could tail it into something like this. So it was a very interesting time.
I mean, to me, we said this before we got in here, that it seems like time was frozen in 2020. How has COVID, if it has, impacted the police force? And more so, impacted it with potential relationship to the community? Has there been anything? Like, have you guys noticed crimes have gone up? Have you noticed things have gone down because no one's really on the streets and,
Yeah, no, you see everything, right? So in particular, I can speak from my perspective. What I'll tell you is right off of the bat, when I got back to the front lines, it was really weird, because you'd expect that people would have been, more in line, or more in the sense of, acting crazy or doing things that were unpredictable. It wasn't really the case. Everybody was kind of just in this weird lull, right? There's this grayness that just went over the city.
Yep.
And where I was in Rexdale, right? And when you're in Rexdale and the areas that you're in, there's a lot of low-income areas. There's a lot of areas in poverty, and that's where I spend all my time. I try to spend all my time in those areas. It's the most impactful for me. It's the most meaningful. So you go out there and you talk to people, right? And I've been in that area when I first started policing 15 years ago, so I still had a lot of connection to that area. I knew a lot of people, kids that are now adults. So I stay in touch with people. And I went out there and I talked to people, and I realized a couple things, right? I'd go back to my house and I'd complain about my life. It sucks with COVID. I can't go on vacation. Like those stupid thoughts.
I can't get into Home Depot to get that lumber, that choice lumber to make the deck, right?
Lumber price went up. I can't. Yeah. Those are my
300%.
Yeah, 300%. So I'm talking to my homeboys where I live, and I'm like, yo, can you believe this guy? When are we going to beach next? Like, what are we these things? It legitimately bumming me out.
Right.
Then I go to work. And I go to work, and what do I see? 5 a.m. people at the bus stop. Cold, in the snow, mask, no mask. People still walking groceries home. People still doing jobs that got to be done. Yes. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm good. There's some people that are so stuck. They have no option. So pandemic or no pandemic, life never changed.
Right.
They had no choice. They had to put food on the table, and they figured it out. And I gave so much credit to those people. And then at the same time, now I'm a little bit more experienced and a little bit wiser in how I talk to people in that position. You'd think you want to come over and be like, oh my God, good for you. They don't want to hear that. It's insulting.
Yes.
Because they're like, well, who are you to talk to me that way? First, I don't know you. Don't pity me. Like, I get lost, get out of here. So
I don't need your charity.
No, you don't. And you think you want to come up there and like help people, and there's ways to help people. But, sometimes just, a subtle head nod, a bump, pulling up and saying, yo, like, where you headed to at the bus stop? If I'd see a guy at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's freezing and he's sitting out there and it's just him. It's not a busy bus stop. I'd be like, yeah, where you headed to? Guy's taking 4 stops. I'll be like, yo, just jump in.
Right.
I don't need to know anything. I'm not going to ask you your business. Some take you up on it, some don't. And it's those ways that I'm like, all right, at least I can do this part. But for me, it was bigger than just being a cop on the streets. For me, it was like a big connection point to say, man, I got a good life. And then I have friends in the private sector that were entrepreneurs that lost their jobs and lost their businesses. And even with that, when we talk about people losing their businesses, what I try to describe to people who aren't in that position, for example, government employees, is I'm like, this is not the person losing their business. This is losing their dream. Like, this is their dream. And we're talking about dreams. And I have a friend who unfortunately lost his dream that he put his blood, sweat, and tears in for 8 years, putting everything else in life on hold and gone. And, when I'm talking to him, it's a part of him just died. And whether it comes back or not, he's an innovative guy. He'll figure it out. But, it's those parts of life where you come back and you say, man, all right, there's something else here. So policing for me has changed quite a bit after that. But for us, for crimes.
Yeah, I guess that was the original question.
Yeah, sorry.
Did it go up? That's all we want to know.
You know what? I'll tell you. It's hard. The statistics don't always tell the truth, right? Because we're talking about reported crime. So reported crime is the crimes that happen that people report. And then there's other things that happen that are criminal but aren't viewed as criminal. So, for example, drug use.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Serb.
Oh my God. Exactly.
It's had some impact, man. Serb has definitely had some impact.
Apparently,
on
a bunch of high school kids were going on Serb, and
Really?
Oh yeah, it was like a big thing. If you're a kid in school, you're like, hey man, just go apply, you'll get free money.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know the full details, but drug use definitely has gone up.
Right.
As a result of drug use going up, what else goes up? Drug trafficking.
Right.
You supply and demand. So that goes up. You're looking at, and that's not always reported. I'm just telling you about stuff we know from our work that we do.
Yes.
Obviously, mental health has become a big issue, which is a non-criminal issue, but mental health for everybody. It leads to other actions that tend to show them out there. And then some stats from the States that I've heard, and I'm sure it's true here because we're not immune to anything, is things like child abuse potentially has gone up in the States because now children who are being abused at home were not going to school where they could report it to a teacher or adult caregivers, and then they're stuck at home in a confined space with the abuser.
Yes.
Same thing with sexual assaults, and it's all the stuff that we're hearing from the States that I haven't seen any statistics from here that would support that. But I think at the same time, as a normal human being, you'd have to anticipate that that'll be happening here.
I mean, I have to probably 100% agree with you that there's stats out there that we don't know of. I mean, suicides, for example, I mean, that's a stat that's not relatively, made public, right? And from what I understand is that they do that intentionally so they don't give people the idea that, hey, this is an option. You know what I mean? Like, so, being stuck at home now, kids are at home, couples are at home, because you have to work from home or you're locked into your home. I mean, it's not a crime, but also like they're saying divorce rates have gone through the roof because you're sick and tired of seeing a person in a different area. So there's so much negativity that came out of all this, right? And I mean, it's just always to me very interesting. And my heart, Ron, 100% goes out to those people that are going through this. It's tough, man. And we went through something. I mean, I personally, saw everything go before my eyes, and the end of the day was actually, you have no choice here. Just kind of that saying, it's not how hard you get, knocked out. It's about if you're going to get back up and push forward again, right? And to me, that's kind of what it was. Die or move forward to survive. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that people just try to get that last bit of inner strength, because it's tough to go through this process.
It is tough, man. You're seeing people get involved in other things too, right? People are really looking at like the motivational space, the inspirational space. I have a lot of friends that transitioned into life coaching, right, and all those things, because they see a demand for it now. They see people who are looking for some purpose, looking for innovation, looking for all the things that they don't have. And the other part about this too, and I think it impacts everybody, is COVID really put scale into what's important for a lot of people. So, for example, speaking for myself, what's important now, and what I now revalue is going for a walk outside, right? Like our family started doing family walks. That's a huge part of the day, because you value, oh man, I got to get my steps in. It's nice to be connected with nature. Going to dinner with friends, going to a movie theater, hugging people you haven't seen in a while. Right. Those things I think have reattached value, and what the world looks like going forward, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, but I think, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think there's an answer for anything. I just think, like you guys, you can look at the negatives, and you have no choice but to, man. Yeah. Right? You got no choice. I think sometimes with that too, people are like, you always got to look at the positives. Yeah, but you got to pay attention to the negatives.
Yeah, you can't be naive if they're right in front of your face, right? And I think that might be a little silver lining that people have connected, as much as there might have been more abrasion, and people have, even if their loving spouse, it might have led to a divorce. I think maybe just generally, I believe people are relatively optimistic, trying to make the best situation. People in my neighborhood are taking walks more than ever. Just that's one good thing. I guess it kind of paused life, that we were just so busy, just on that treadmill of work, home, right? Repeat kind of thing, right? So,
I think people become more neighborly too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because if my neighbor now is, out there shoveling his driveway, I'm gonna pop out. Hey, what's up, man? How are you? Everything's good. How you hanging out there? Like, we've done a few porch things where you touch base with the neighbor because that's all you got, and you're like, come out on your porch at this time, and we'll grab a drink or something
hilarious.
Like that. Right? Like, you have no choice, because
backyard bar, right?
We've done it, right? And you're kind of like, so it's nice to have that, but again, like you guys, I'm always looking forward.
Okay, so what have you been up to?
Man, a lot has happened since we were here last. So just to recap, when we were here last, we were doing this whole planning for doing these town halls, right? The town halls was to get out into the 30 most gang-impacted neighborhoods in the city, host these town halls once a week for a period of 6 months. We had 31 scheduled, and that was in April. We had done the planning for it, and in September we kicked off. And we'd spent some time planning it. It takes a whole bunch of time to plan that. And we kicked off, and it was a wild experience, man. It was crazy. It's probably one of the best things I ever did in my career, where we focused on just the people. And I'll give you an example on kind of what happened there. We'd spent a year or two trying to bring in together high-level partnerships to solve this problem, right? Because gangs, as we talked about before, it's a huge issue from 0 all the way to 18 plus. Police can't solve this. You got to bring in everybody, and we all got to have skin in the game. We tried that, man. Stuff sometimes happens. It's hard to bring people together. Because as much as it's organization, it's people to people. Right. So, you and I might be in different government spaces or social agency spaces, and all of a sudden you get a promotion or you move on to another agency, that relationship dies, the new people come in, you got to rebuild.
Do it all over again.
It's taxing, it's tiring. So you're having day one conversations, and the intricate details, they die out. So you're like, all right, man, here we go again. But in the midst of all that, we realize, all right, who's the one group we never really focused on? It's the actual people in the community, like the actual people. And we use the term community, and it's weird because it rubs people the wrong way sometimes, because they take it as this buzzword. But I have no other word to use. But in reality, we're dealing with people, right? Because what happens is you take a bunch of people stuck in an area, and I say stuck because they're stuck, and they're victimized, and they're held hostage by their own community, and we're trying to deal with them. Quote unquote, deal is the word I'll use, right? At least beforehand, that's what I thought it was. Then we host these town halls, we kind of figure it out, and we get people coming out, and over the 30 of them, we had 1,600 participants, which was huge for us, massive for us. And we had about 75 different government and non-government organizations attend. And what we had found was we focused so much so on the people that we negated everybody else just out of frustration. So when we hosted these, the way we advertised them was, and we changed them each one. So the first one, I was in a suit and tie. We had a couple of police officers there. They were in uniform, and we thought it was a good look. It wasn't a good look.
Yes.
And the town hall went really well, but luckily the first one I did it in, I knew a lot of people. So the first one we did it in Rexdale. So I had known a lot of community members, a lot of social agencies. I'd known them for the last 10 years, 14 years. So they came out, we're friends. So afterwards, I said, hey guys, give us the feedback. Like, what's up? What went well? What didn't go well? They're like, first off, the uniforms, they got to go. You can't have police officers in uniform. It rubs a lot of people the wrong way. That's the feedback they got. So, all right, check. What else? Your suit looks like it costs more than where they live. Okay, check. Get rid of the suit. So we're like, you need childcare. Cool. So it took us about 6 town halls for us to hit our rhythm.
Yes.
Okay.
So we dumped the suits, we dumped the uniform presence, we changed the food, we brought in people to help out with childcare. And then the other thing that we did is, and it's no disrespect to anybody, but we kept senior police officers and politicians out of it on purpose. Because we said, look, we would have some, and I developed a lot of good relationships here, and I got some clarity with some other people. We had a lot of people show interest and wanted to come that were in the political world. And they wanted to come because we're in their riding or in their whatever it is. And we had a rule. The rule was, look, you can come. We're not going to introduce who you are.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a platform to speak.
This is not your platform.
Yeah. This is not a pitch. This is about we got to understand what's happening here, and we got to pitch to them participation in a potential solution. And sadly, about 80% of the people that called us and we said that to didn't show up.
Oh, wow.
No more incentive to be there.
None. But then 20% that did show up, I'm like, you're the right person for this job. And you could see that. They would come in, they'd quietly introduce themselves to me. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I called you. I'm this counselor. And they would just sit in the back. And, at the end of it, without telling them, I'd give them their shout out. I'd say, hey, by the way, everybody, in this room, this person here, in case you don't know, this is your counselor. This is what the conversation we had, and they still showed up.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, look, if you want to say something, like, you've earned it.
Yes.
That's great.
Right.
It came for the right reason.
100%.
There's this quote that we say often from Simon Sinek, and he says, don't do business with people who need what you have. Do business with people who believe what you believe. So the 20 believed in it, and it wasn't just for something that they can get as a kickback. So that's really cool.
No, and
it
was great because I found supporters in other ways, right? So I'm like, this guy's great or girl's great, bring them forward. And so we did that, and then the people, word of mouth spread. And then I think the first one we had like 40 people, and then eventually got to over 100 people, and which is massive for us. We're coming into your neighborhood, we're talking about guns and gangs, and the audience was just filled with, people who were living in these communities. But we also had gang members, ex-gang members, human trafficking survivors, ex-pimps, current human trafficking victims, parents whose kids were murdered as a result of gang violence, parents parents of children who were in jail for murders. We had the gamut, and in that gamut, we kind of figured it out. So throughout all of it, we had conducted all these different conversation points, and we adjusted as we went. And we learned so much, and I produced a recommendations and insight report to the Toronto Police Services Board, which is the board that runs the city, and we presented it to them in October of this year. And there was 37 insights and recommendations from what we learned from that, where not only can we do our job better in terms of servicing, and I'm not talking just police, I'm talking government, for the community, but also where we potentially made some mistakes.
What were some key insights? I know 37 is a lot to go through, but what were some that maybe were a surprise to you?
I'll tell you, there's so many, but I'll tell you probably 2 or 3 that I will remember forever, because they don't just apply in policing, they apply to anything. And it's so important. I'll tell you, number one is you can't solve the problem from the outside in.
Yeah. And
you can't penetrate the inside, right? That's a lot of work to want to penetrate. What you have to do is you have to make a relationship with somebody on the inside. So generally what I saw was over the 30 town halls, was the general theme was, in a lot of these communities that really need help, the help that's there for them is not the help that they need.
Yeah.
Right? Because what big cities do, not just Toronto, and it's not out of ill will, it's just out of good intent, but they don't have the insights of it.
Yes.
Is that they want to look at the city of Toronto as the city of Toronto, and it's the same from east to west. Each one of those 30 town halls was a completely different city. If I were to show you the people in there and talk about the problems, it's not the same. It's the same core, but they don't have the same needs. You know, sometimes it's an elder population, sometimes it's a younger population.
The demographic changes greatly,
And you got to know what's up with the demographic. You got to know
neighborhood struggles, all those things. What's there?
You got to know the cultural backgrounds. You got to know, like, you know, is there two feuding? In one case, there was two feuding Middle Eastern populations, right? One was of Islamic background and one was of Catholic background, right? And that was stemming a lot of the violence. You know, do they need after school programs? No. You know, they need education programs. They need conflict, mediation. So the stuff that they need, they're not getting. And it again, the ill will doesn't come out of somebody saying this is what you need. What happens is government in general, we come on the outside and we look down at the problem. All right, okay, let's look from this, you know, mile high view. Okay, I see that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem.
It's comfortable and convenient.
Yeah, let's talk to these guys over here. So you're the fire department. Oh, what are you guys seeing? Oh, your ambulance. What are you seeing? Great. You know what this community needs? This is what they need. What we don't get is we don't get the top-down view, or sorry, the bottom-up view. And we need that bottom-up view. So you got to penetrate that. How you penetrate, you make relationships. You say, look, this is what I'm seeing in a non-confrontational, non-judgmental way. And you say, look, what am I missing? Like, do you see any of this? And they won't see it because they don't have that view.
Yeah.
And then you have to extend the arm because we're in kind of a land of privilege to extend the arm and say, okay, explain to me your world. Let me see this. You know, and then you're finding the gaps, and you go, "Oh, I never thought of it this way."
It's interesting. Can I give you some insight on that? I worked with a nonprofit before that was first started in Camden, New Jersey, notoriously known as one of the most violent cities in the U.S. It got started because there were some youth workers that kind of went in, did an afternoon program, got out of there because they don't want to live there, they don't want to be there. It's a dangerous U.S. city. One day, I think the biggest drug dealer in the neighborhood. Eventually, kind of like I forget the exact detail of the story, but he somehow debunked this program. He kind of said to the kids, yeah, come over here, and it got them all hot dogs and something, okay? And to kind of gloat, he came over and he said, hey, no kids today, right? And they're like, yeah, well, I mean, you know, we're still going to be committed. And the drug dealer said to them, and he meant it in a way, but this gave insight. And he said, you guys don't get it. When you go home, I'm here. Mm-hmm. When you go to bed, I'm here. Mm-hmm. When you're watching your movies and enjoying your second car and going on your vacation, I'm always here. I'm going to be here 8 a.m. I'm going to be here. Okay. So what's really cool about this group that got that wasn't something that discouraged them. They listened and said, wow, that's truth right there. That's the truth in this neighborhood. So they just did more. Yep. They just set up shop and said, we're going to be here. We're going to be really about serving the community. We're going to be true big brothers and sisters. And so that's like a perfect example where no matter how good it is, if it's just short-lived, it's not effective.
No. And you know, the other thing too we learned is that, that we transitioned out into the insights report is, look, they're willing to cooperate. Like they want help. It's the help just has to be in the line of where they need it, and it's got to be under their terms. So, for example, the direct transition, to give you another example of that, is one of the questions I started off with. So the way it was set up was our team was there and everybody would come in, and we started at 6 p.m., but I wouldn't start kicking off shop till like 6:30 or 6:45 because everybody's on their own time. It's a weekday, you know, guys are tired, people, they got stuff going on. So what I would do is I wouldn't have on a uniform, right? I would be kind of dressed like this, and I'd introduce myself to everybody, but not as, oh, I'm Officer Chhinzer. It was like, hey, I'm Ron, nice to meet you. What brought you out today?
Right.
Yes.
And, you know, it was a bit of trickery because I didn't want them to know I was a cop, but I wanted to understand the room so I knew what information to present. And I wanted to know what brought them out there. So you'd hear stuff. I saw a poster. Oh, my brother was shot and killed. Oh, you know, I'm here with my probation officer, whatever. And I'm like, okay. And then I'd introduce myself, and we'd broken down the barrier. And then I would start at 6:45. I'd introduce myself as, hey, my name's Ron. I'm with the Toronto Police. I'm a police officer.
Yeah.
I'm here today. But at that point, we were good. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of had a good gauge for who I was. And
yeah, that's good.
All these happened, these town halls, the last 6 months, you said, right?
No, September 2019 to March 2020.
I got a nickname for you.
What's up?
King Chin.
King Chin.
There you go. Right?
I'll take it, man.
Yeah, just trust me.
Yeah, I'll
come
take
up with
it.
a handshake and you're good.
I'll take it, man. So I talked to all these people. Then we kind of sell the framework. Look, this is what we've learned.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're thinking.
It's amazing. But you're opening it up like a discussion. You're not teaching as you said.
No, it's a discussion. It was really interactive, right? So I was like, look, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Like, will this work here for you? Will it not work here for you? And they fill in the gaps. And then at the end of it, so all that stuff I would record, right? I'd record snippets for, because it was the only way for us to get that impact out there. because you need to advertise what you're doing, and you need to sell the human side of things for people to start paying attention and say, what's happening over here?
Okay, so if this is a neighborhood, small nucleus of people, there's a drug dealer. There's drug activity. There's people who have that influence. You have the moms in there. You have, some older men if there's any. Okay? Even if they don't have a great relation with the police, let's just assume they don't. Hence why don't be in the suit, don't have your uniform. Do they actually at some point say to you guys as a collective, we want these drug dealers out? Do they put it on you? Like,
no.
Okay.
Never came out once.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? Because the general, perception would be like, come on, do police work for us. Do this. This is how you make it safer for So what did you take as what is the thing that they were looking at you guys to help resolve?
Everyday problems that related to poverty.
Interesting.
That's what it came down to.
Yeah, interesting.
Like I'll give you the stats. We administered surveys.
And what would that mean? Can you just break that down to someone who says, okay, that blanket statement, what does that mean?
So here I'll give you an example. So the top 3 neighborhood concerns throughout the entire city. Number 1 was robbery and theft, which is 51.2%. All right.
Wow.
Second to that is drug dealing and use, 45%, and gang activity being 37.5%. The reason I relate that to poverty is because those are all crimes that generally impact neighborhoods that are in poverty.
Yes.
Right? That's like through the board. It's called social disorganization. When we'd asked them what they thought about the top 3 things that contributed to like being a gang and a gang member, and this is from the community, number 1, poverty.
Yes.
Right? It's 58% said poverty. Number 2 was a lack of activities, and number 3 was family problems. All right. So those, again, they said it flat out. Why are there gangs in our neighborhoods? Poverty. We're poor. What are the options, right? When it came down to top 3 strategies, we asked them, what do you think would help you? Number 1 was mentoring. 73% said mentoring. Then we had community programs and job training and placement shortly after, right? What is that all about? So mentoring for what? For a life outside of this neighborhood.
Yes.
Community programs for what? To develop skills. Job training and skills. Number 3, job training, economic activity. And then the last one we asked, which was notable for us, is what are the top 3 things you're willing to do to help out? So we asked them, what are you willing to do here? Number 1 was mentoring, 55%. Second was teach skills, and third was outreach. So you have a real motivated population that's saying, when we're talking about guns and gangs, when I properly dissect all of the data, all of the conversations, it's all surrounding around, we think we go into there and they're going to say, oh, murderers, you got to stop the murders. Yeah, they're very passionate about that, but majority of the conversation is around, look, man, my everyday is screwed up like this, and you're not helping.
Yes.
In the places you should be helping. I want to be able to go to the bus stop and not be worried about running into a crew in the lobby of my building. I can deal with that, but it's annoying. It's these small annoyances that happen every day that lead to big things. But what happens is we all focus on the big things. Big things start small. It's the small things that bother people every day. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a neighbor you don't like, that's a huge problem for you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but put that on a scale. People say, oh, you got a problem with your neighbor? Not a big deal. Yeah. You live there 24 hours a day. So it's kind of, that's the relation, right? And it's weird, but one of the areas where I really highlighted, and this took a lot of traction nationally, as well as I've consulted with 2 other police services in other countries on this, was with the leading opening question. So the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, I introduce myself to everybody without saying I'm a cop. Then we do like a 45-minute pitch. Here's the framework. What do you think?
King Chin.
and then after that, what I do is I shut off all the cameras, the mics. We take them off, and we said, look, roundtable discussion.
Amazing.
What's said here is said here. We will never tell anybody.
Yes.
And we stay true to our word 100%.
Right.
Never said a soul, never told a soul outside of that room.
Right.
What was said
right.
that would identify any person.
Right.
And you'd think in there they'd be telling you, yo, this house is dealing dope. No. It wasn't anything like that. What it was I opened it up with a question because everybody's kind of nervous, right? And my first question to everyone is, why is it when there's a murder and we know people are there because we see the video footage, nobody comes forward and tells us what happened? And there's the obvious, right? People are afraid. But we broke it down and we got a really good picture. And the picture for us and how we're changing things going forward is a direct result of these conversations. So, for example, one of the people in the town halls had said, look, I'll tell you why. And this is a conglomerate of all of them. But they had said, look, when a murder happens in our neighborhood, let's say it's a community housing neighborhood. Mm-hmm. She goes, what happens? A murder happens. People might have seen it. But the police come, lights and sirens, set up the tape. The media comes out there. And then you're knocking on our doors in a uniform. Like, we're not going to tell you anything.
Right.
Walls are paper thin. Everybody's watching. Are you
Yeah.
crazy?
It was
You're
the
not-
trust issue.
You're not for us.
No.
Yeah.
At that
Yeah.
time, they're terrified.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They might have known not only the victim, but the shooter.
Yes.
Right. And you don't, so they're like, yo, I'm not saying anything to you
Yes.
at that moment. So we're like, okay, I get it. Well, what would you do? Like, what should we do? And they've all said, look, give us some time. Give us some time.
Yeah.
Let us digest what happened. Let the heat go off and come back, but don't come in uniform and represent the group that we're in, so you're not drawing heat to my
Yeah. Don't
house.
come in like a marching band.
No, just come in cool, come in calm, find some cops that are already trusted in the area or send some other people, but go in and knock on our door like a week or two after. Knock on our door at these type of times that are normal, not some, heat score time, and we'll tell you everything.
Mm-hmm.
They just, in that moment, they're like, are you crazy? And then the other part too is a lot of people aren't aware of Crime Stoppers. That was a huge thing for us. Where we
Yeah.
said
As a resource. No, I know.
they had no idea.
Yeah. They need a
Right.
lifeline. They need a lifeline.
That's it. So
Right.
we said, if you're not comfortable with a police officer talking to you, use Crime Stoppers. And they're like, what's Crime Stoppers? Which is crazy to me because Crime Stoppers does such an amazing job at advertising
Yeah.
with kids and schools,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't hit the population. So we have a great relationship with Toronto Crime Stoppers. They're amazing. And they're so on par with this that they're starting to go after this group to say, look,
Do they have an online platform?
it's all, you can email, text message, do an online tip, call. You can do it from your phone. There's so many ways.
tips, right?
222 tips.
I mean, how can you forget
We
that?
will do that.
Yeah, so we really push that type of stuff now. So we brought that into our organization and
Yeah.
said, look, went to our homicide and said, look, this is what we've learned. This is the feedback.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And it's been tabled at a very high level now to say, look, we got to start adjusting this because this is what these communities are telling us as opposed to us going through process.
So, Ron, let me just throw something. Right now, it's identified that there's a barrier of trust that needs to be kind of broken down, right?
Mistrust.
Yes, mistrust. Now, when the whole George Floyd situation happened, right, it's still a very sensitive issue. How much of that did you find became an even bigger obstacle now to penetrate through, where you're like the police are looked at even more?
Oh,
as a
man.
listener?
So this will be a dicey answer for you because, again, right after George Floyd, I was back on the streets. And I'd done 2 social media videos on my experiences back there.
Okay.
And you'd think, based on what you saw in the news and the media, you would think that we'd go in there and be hated. In the areas that are the most impacted by crime in general, I'm not just talking guns and gangs, I'm talking about crime, they want us there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That did not change. Okay, we go into those areas, hard hit, poverty,
Right.
high crime, historical gangs. We'd come into there, they're like, everything's good, right? No issues. But then you go to areas that aren't impacted by crime as much, it's a different ballgame.
Okay.
Right? Oh, we don't like the police. You guys are racist or whatever. And it was so mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
That I'm like,
police, all
almost
that
like,
stuff. Yeah.
It almost didn't fit.
It just the whole story that even I had
That
felt
narrative.
from the narrative from the media and from other people that don't need police ever in their life.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right.
Even my own family and friends that
Right.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happens. It bleeds over in our personal life.
Yeah.
My first day back is when I put the video. My first day back, I went into a neighborhood called Jamestown in Rexdale.
Mm-hmm.
I parked my car and I walked around. My first day back, I wanted to just talk by myself. I just want to see, okay, let me see what this is like. It was fine. Hey, officer, how are you? Good, how are you? Great. How's your day going? Good. How you dealing with COVID? Oh, I'm getting through it. Right? Then you go to like more affluent areas. Oh, screw the cops. It blew my mind.
Wow.
And one of the things I'd put on my video was all those people that are online
That are woke.
that are woke and saying this and that. I'm in these neighborhoods right now that
Wow.
need help and support, never showing up once.
Yeah.
Not once, and that's the part to me where I started to take it a little personal, where I'm like, this is crazy. Like,
Right.
we're actually trying to do something here. I'm dealing with the people who need the help the most, and all these, self-righteous groups are
People
popping
on the
up saying things.
sideline are in the way of the work. That's what you're basically saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm game for it, right? Like, I'm all open for it. I did a whole 45-minute video on my thoughts on George Floyd, right?
Yes, I saw that. It was amazing.
And I pumped it out to just say, look, this is what I think about it, because I felt I got a lot of feedback from the community saying, yo, man, you got to say something about this.
Yes.
Right? And I was like, okay. I felt so much of it that I said it. But for me, the craziest part was I felt so bad for, not the police. We'll deal with it. We're fine.
Yeah.
I felt bad for the communities that need the attention because it became such a monopolized opportunity.
Yes.
And to this day, I have not seen any of that money or services bleed out there. And it's
Right.
crazy to me, man.
Yeah.
So there's
so
no
crazy.
like one fix. There's no like, okay,
No.
of the 4 options, Ron, pick which one you. Okay.
Yeah.
what needs to happen in terms of just the direction. Again,
Yeah.
pandemic has done its thing. It's run its course. But the George Floyd murder, all of that heat and all that animosity and hostility in America, we know it. I got a lot of good friends in the States. It is very real there.
States is a different country too.
It's a different country. It's very real there.
People don't remember that. I have to remind people, I'm like, that's a whole other country.
It is.
But the cast web comes over to Canada as well, right?
Yeah, it does.
As one,
Whatever.
So if you were, again, I mean, you know the territory here, what do you think needs to happen? There's all these buzzwords thrown out, headlines, people believe they know it, they have the intel. Like, imagine like you don't even know all of the data. You don't know all the stats. Just from a gut feeling, knowing that what you know from your own experience, what needs to happen to improve the way policing's done? What needs to happen in terms of, the right neighborhoods to be impacted, and that we look and that we actually see down the road, this is a good thing. It was an instrumental time. It blew up. We all paid attention as we should, but it's now changed it. Look the way it's done here. Look, it's changed what's going on in the UK and France and South Africa, and because the whole world paid attention.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think it's a damn shame that we get everyone gets swept up into the buzzwords, into the headlines, and then everyone has a false sense that something's actually been done.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the people that are about it, they're about it. Okay? But now I'm going to watch my next Netflix special. We all know there was a response. Everyone kind of felt like something has to change.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Something just has to change, has to get better. If no one's pointing fingers and we actually, as you said, like in a round table said, okay, how do we make it better? Yeah. What's your thoughts? What do you think?
You know what? I think there's three things that really stand out. I think number one is education. Mm-hmm. All right. Number one is education. I mean, by the true sense of the word, I'm talking, education from school and how information gets relayed to people. When we're looking at, areas that are really impacted by crimes, you're looking at this ugly cycle of, what happens when an area is impacted by crimes, and then what happens to crime when it's impacted by an area. You look at things like, property value is decreased, so people can't build equity. Big businesses don't come in, so you don't get employment. Then they're over-serviced sometimes, so people don't build resiliency in their own skills, right? It's like, oh, you got a problem? We're going to give a solution for you.
Yes.
Vote us in. You see that cycle, and then you're looking at now, families where they're in third or fourth generation of living in community housing. Mm-hmm. And each and every one I talk to, they're like, I don't want this, but I don't know how to get out. And then they get this false label on them that they're lazy. No, this is what they know, right? This is what they learned.
It's a cycle.
So the education for me comes into is to really communication and how does information go by. Like if we look at some high schools, this is a rough number. Let's just look back at our own high school experiences. About 5% of that high school never really connected with traditional streams of education. And I'm not blaming the school systems by any means. I don't even know what the answer is here. But what I'm saying is, why are we just okay with that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Why are you just okay with, the 5% is we're the ones, whatever. We're going to let that bleed out into whatever problem it's going to be.
Yeah.
Those people are not stupid people. They might have other things going on. They might not be able to read the words on the page. When's the last time they had an eye exam? What if what they want in life doesn't align with traditional means of education? Maybe we got to bring in mentors, push them in entrepreneurship, change up how we do things with them. Maybe showing up on school at 7 a.m. is not going to work for this guy, or girl. Maybe they're up late at night doing all this. We don't know, but I don't think we can be okay ever with saying that 5% is a lost cause, because then they bleed into those poverty cycles. They bleed into that high crime type activity. They bleed into the victimization. So I think education is something we have to consistently be looking at and demanding better for. Like we got to innovate that space, and innovate's the word. The second thing I'd say is we really got to focus on leadership. And I'm not just talking about leadership within organizations. What I'm talking is on building leaders. You talked about that gang member dealing dope. That's a leader.
Yeah, he's a leader.
100% he's a leader, right? And those skills are so important. So, one of the things we've done after the town hall is about, it was in December of 2019. So September of 2019, we started. December of 2019, we wrote this project that's called Project Engage. Mm-hmm. And it was directly as a result of what we were learning from the town halls. And what we learned there was a whole bunch of things. And we said, all right, we're going to run this pilot project, which started in September of 2020. And we'd spent the year planning, which changed because of COVID. But we said, what needs to happen here is we need to invest into these communities, not in terms of money, but in terms of people. We need to find the people who we met from the town halls. We picked 12 neighborhoods in northwest Toronto, and we've assigned an officer to cover 4 neighborhoods. And what they're doing is they're going in, we're building up these neighborhood committees. The initial plan was you build up these neighborhood committees, You bring in government agencies, and you literally do that roundtable twice a month. And what you do is you come across low cost and sustainable solutions that are like root cause solutions. And it's through leadership. So we're finding the leaders in the community that say, look, you know, what I want to do, because all of them said mentorship was where we could help. And you could find the leaders in the town halls. You know who they are, not the loud ones, but the actual leaders. And our goal was to build them up, you know. So we had found a great example. We found this guy in the west end of the city. And in one of the town halls, one of the questions he asked is, hey, man, how do we reduce the cost of gym space at schools after school?
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
Wow.
So I go, all right.
Because access, it's about access. They need it.
And luckily, we had a principal there and we had a counselor there. So they piped in too, and we said, great, man, what do you need the gym space lowered for? So this guy on his own, you know, out of his own pocket, has been renting gym space, and he's been tutoring 150 kids over the last 5 years. 7 of which have gone to university on his own.
Wow.
All right. So, is that mine?
Is that you, Mike?
No, I knew it wasn't me.
It's not me.
Who's that?
I don't know.
It's none of us.
Anyways, so
That's weird. All good.
So this guy.
Shout out to your iPhone. Someone's
Yeah.
with it.
So this guy tutoring 150 kids on his own, 7 of which have gone on university from low-income areas. You know, no help from anybody.
It's amazing.
No funding. But now he's like, I can't afford the space.
Okay.
All right, so we said, boom, opportunity here. Okay, talk to the counselor, talk to the principal. What do we do here? How do we do this? And not only that, we bring this guy in, give him the leadership skills, give him the access to how do you write grants, get him connected with the government agencies.
Yes.
We're not taking ownership of this.
Right.
You've already got it, man.
Yeah.
You're already the guy.
Yeah.
Great. We're not going to impede you, man. How do we help you? What do you need help with? And then bring in experts to say, through mentorship and volunteer opportunities, which we have a ton of. We have over 50 volunteers and ambassadors from all walks of life, from professional backgrounds that can come in and mentor people. You know, financial advice, financial literacy. Here, you know, here's a job placement program. And I think to myself, you know, that guy who's done this for 5 years, just imagine if somebody had invested in this guy, not just money, but knowledge. You know, how do we make him more of a leader and then let him make other leaders, right? That's where we invest. So we had this idea, which we started executing on in September of 2020. And what we had done is we'd done a ton of outreach. So we have it operating in phases till April of 2023. And the first phase was, you know, planning and purchasing all the equipment we need and branding and all that stuff. And the second phase, which we started in September, was us getting out to these neighborhoods and doing a lot of door knocks. We literally go out and knock on doors, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. And we give them surveys. We talk to people. We're not in uniform. We're non-threatening. You know, if they say no, they say no. It's all good. Don't worry about it. But people are super receptive. And on average, among 4 of us, we're hitting about 350 doors a day up until end of October. So we were knocking on these doors. We're gathering some more insights, talking to people to try to build this team to help run the strategies from the inside out. Learned a boatload about what's happening. But then COVID hit super hard.
Oh, man.
Super hard. The second wave roped in. We had to reassess. So we took the month of November, December downtime. We reassessed, and we've transitioned to everything online. So now if you go to our website at engage416.ca, that's an online forum.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to build an online community where it's a mix of everybody. You can post whatever you want. We got rules and guidelines. There's the obvious things. And then the goal is when things open up back again, we got these steering committees, these seminars, all these things based on bringing in really influential, knowledgeable people back in to get into these neighborhoods, as well as big companies now have expressed some interest to come in and to really facilitate some investments into these communities, some mentoring and some leadership development, so that, you know, we stay off of it. Because one of the things I really took from all this is, you know, programs are so important. You know, programs are really important. Projects are probably even more important, because projects have a defined end and defined beginning.
Yes.
Right? And that's ideally how you want to approach things.
Yeah.
Is you don't want to be a forever thing like a program. Because a forever thing means they're always relying on you. So now we have another cycle.
Right.
The idea is you want to break those cycles by getting in there. Here's the skills. Let's evaluate. You know, what do you need? Every 6 months, touch base. How's it going? Great. Don't expect them to have the knowledge base, but you got to coach them through it. So number 1, education. Number 2 is leadership at every level and by every definition of the word. And number 3 is you really need community support, and you know, you need them to be the drivers of the ship. You know, you really need them in the driver's seat, and you have to be okay being the number 2. You know, you're a knowledgeable number 2. You have access to money. You have access to resources and the connections and networks, but you have to be okay being the driving instructor. Like that has to be a flip that I think not only government agencies, but social services and not-for-profits.
Yeah.
That for me going forward is like the light to say, okay, man, I don't need to solve every one of, you know, Constantine's or Mike's problems. let me be the driver instructor here, and let me just assess this and say, yo, man, we're good. Yo, a little bit lighter on the brakes. Let's pump it right over here. Okay, I can do that. And then at some point, you're like a self-driving car, and then we're good. And we say, all right, we've done this for you. Now you got to do it for somebody else.
So these sessions, you filmed them? You guys documented them?
Yeah, I filmed them. I put them up on YouTube. If you just type in Toronto Gang Prevention Town Hall, I think I end up putting in 22 of them in.
Yeah, beginning to end?
No, they're edited. So we kept people out of it so that it's private.
Yes.
But the bulk of it is in there. The private conversations we never recorded. But then they transitioned into this Project Engage. And now what our big platform now is we're trying to get people to come to the site. And we're trying to roll out some different strategies. So again, November, December, we had to adjust, shift the whole thing with COVID like you guys and pump it back out. And so far, it's starting to pick up a little bit. But, the end goal is always going to be the same, man. We have certain deliverables, those being we want to decrease crime all around through not just guns and gangs, but human trafficking and sexual assault and violence, because they're all kind of tied into the same. But the big thing is we want champions, man. I want winners.
I got an idea for you. I mean, you said education, leadership, community involvement. You might be doing this right now. So if you are, let me know or say it right now. Because if you could combine all three, you can say it, but when people see it, it impacts in another level.
Big time.
So you just said that you drove into a neighborhood, you asked people in uniform, right on the heels of everything going on. Perception would be like, oh man, people hate police. But it's still civil.
Very civil.
If you could show that versus just say it, it's even more powerful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've not put a great plan together, you 100% should have some type of team or production or documentary or series, and in their own words, you ask just the questions, you get out the way, and it's maybe only key people. It might be 1 in 200 that say, I'll say that on camera.
Yeah.
I'll say the difficult thing. I don't care anymore. I lost this or what, and even if it's just posing the questions or what people like, because part of the problem is these podiums, these stages and podiums that make it such a formality, and you see that even though you had it, which is amazing, you're getting in there, you're getting in deep. But as soon as you turn the cameras off, you get something else, even more authentic, even more potent, even more like, okay, I say that because if you could capture that as you're doing it and share it in these online, it's there's no limit to who it can get to. And that couple at home that has had the luxury of never having to see these problems firsthand, they might say, hey, instead of watching the National today, Gord, let's watch this. I'm just saying. Yeah. They come across this little segment that's interesting, and again, show versus tell. Show versus tell. So I don't know if you're going or with Rico, or you guys have a plan with that, whatever, but there's something incredibly fascinating about being brave enough to go in there and to unearth the things, to dispel the fear, and to see these are everyday people that just want to have a meal. I just want to be able to go to work and come home and love my loved ones.
Yep.
Right? And poverty is a real thing, and you might not. And I just think there's a huge aspect of what we can really gain from education. I believe leadership, like these guys, like this guy who's doing this tutoring, that has to get spotlit.
Amazing.
Because if someone heard that, they'd be like, I could just do that?
Yep.
Because literally someone has thought, okay, but they're not thinking, I can actually just cut kids' hair. I'm a barber.
Yeah.
For 3 hours, I'm just going to open it up, and it's free haircuts.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you come with your mom, you're front of the line, and whatever, like these little things that people could do that are in the community businesses. You know what? Let's start an initiative where let's hire youth age 14 to 16 that have at least a certain grade level, a certain proficiency or whatever, and they're going to get a part-time job with us. And that's all. And then this is where
it's a great idea.
Yeah. So
and you hit on the head, man. And the one thing I'm taking from you, Spark, and the other stuff is, we have such high expectations of ourselves and such high expectations of others. And
it's so true.
It's true, 100%. Right. I'm not fault for it. And I'll share with you. So on top of Project Engage, we've still, kept the gang exit strategy going. And from August to currently right now, we've figured out the streamline. We know how to get people in. We know how to do it, and we know how to get the right people. We've had over 600 people that are currently in our gang exit program. Over 600 people.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 75% of them are males, 25% are females.
Yep.
We have a wide variety of risk factors. I brought the stats in today.
Can I just highlight that? Yes, a quarter of them are actually female.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep. Huge.
Yeah,
I think one of the stats I had read in Toronto that was publicly available, it said in Toronto or the province of Ontario, but 6 to 9% of all gang members are females.
Wow.
And the group we're getting in, it's not just gang members. Who we're getting in is we really targeted, gang members, either current or ex-gang members that are, in trouble with the law, associates, so people who grew up with gang members, hang out with them but don't do crimes, but might get mistaken as, oh, yo, you're part of this crew. They just grew up together. They're just friends. They're not a gang member. They're friends. It's a different ballgame.
Guilty by association.
100%. So we do a lot of education campaign on the inside for policing. We've been doing that to say, look, A and B doesn't mean they're both A.
Right.
Okay, you got to ask questions. You got to know what's up. You got to look at their history. And I'm so impressed with and I'm not just saying this because I work for them, but I'm so impressed with the other police officers I work with who we've really relied on to input us. They get it. They're totally in line with it. At first, they're really skeptical. When we kind of give them a coaching session with, look, this is how you talk to them. This is how you approach them. And it's not like use these words like, yo. No. It's just like, look, man, come down low key, be yourself.
Listen, don't cap no one family. This is, it's not that. Okay.
No, that's not, excuse me, sir.
We're being Ali G right now.
Yeah, so we just say, look, we say, be yourself, be professional, be straight up.
Yeah.
Be completely straight up with everybody and say, look, it's here, no pressure. If you don't want it, it's cool, it's all good. And their reception has been back so good. So some of the officers were like, no, it's not going to work. I'm like, trust me, it'll work. And they've executed on it. And they're like, they call me back and they go, holy man, that actually worked. And I go, guy, we're not dealing with an enemy here. Okay, a small percentage of them consider them the enemy, but the majority of them, these are just lost people, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're looking for a lifeline.
Yes.
I'm like, you present that lifeline, you'd be surprised on the response. And it's something I've learned over the last 4 years. You got this idea of, oh, this gang member, he's a gangster. That's a show, man. That is a show.
It's a persona.
Ron, all the stuff that you guys are doing,
Yeah.
does the media catch that?
We kind of keep the media out of it a little bit.
Because to me, you're doing good, man.
Yeah,
you guys are doing some good stuff. And
Let's ask why. Why is the media kept out?
I do it for a couple of reasons. Like, and my team is very good with it. And we've had some experience with myself and my partner have been there doing the longest, Jason Kondo. And the reason we kind of keep the media out of it is we're trying to ride this fine line of avoiding exploitation. So really for myself, what got me into a lot of spaces and really connected with the right people to help out has been the fact that I've never exploited those relationships for what I thought was the benefit of myself or the Toronto Police Service. And the Toronto Police Service has been great with that. We've had a lot of requests and we're really kind of picky on who we go with because we either wanted like historical relationships where we kind of knew the people and we're like, oh, this is good. And at the same time, when I'm working with people or anybody from our team is working with somebody, and we're like, look, man, like I'm not in this for me, guy. Like, yeah, this is for me. Ultimately, I feel good doing it. But what I'm worried about is you. What I see in you is what I want you to see in yourself.
yeah.
And I don't care about anything else. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like I'm only using you for a news clip.
Exactly.
Or I'm using this story for something.
No, you stay right there. Look hungry.
Yeah.
Right now. Let's get it. All that nonsense.
And then, we've had those where we have had people, one in particular, we'd referred out to media in time of a bigger story.
Yeah.
And we were really selective in how we did it. And it didn't go well. And it didn't go well not because the story wasn't a great story.
They came with an angle.
They came with an angle, and
Yeah.
and the person, we can't prep people, right?
Yeah.
No.
And we want that story to be raw, and if it's not flattering of us, so be it.
Right.
Yeah.
That the point is, this is what we need to get out there. Like, we need to bring it all out there and say, okay, let's recognize this, let's work with this. Let's, like you said.
So if
figure
you know
out.
it's not in the traditional means through media, in the way a producer would be like, you know what we need to do here? Okay. Still try to find a way to move it forward.
Yeah.
Because if you can show it, to educate, to, show leadership within and, and spur leadership for people to come in, to get community involvement, you just never know what it can grow to.
I know it's you're 100% right, and it's we've been really battling that. I've been battling because I'm like, man, we got to tell the story.
Part of your role might be just to tell people to stay back.
Sure.
It's making sure mainstream media or someone doesn't go in there and get it. We just got word. Like, it's saying no.
Yeah.
Don't mess up what's actually happening.
Yeah, and this is not to paint the media as negative either. I have lots of friends in that space that they got a job to do, right? And
Right.
But that's the problem.
yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But people don't understand the impact of what they do.
Right.
And neither do we. And I'll give you a great example. There was this one group I was working with that behind the scenes I had done so many things for. And when there was an opportunity, they didn't say flattering things about me because they were in a financial hardship. And there was an opportunity where they felt like, okay, if they devalued what we were doing by naming me, then they might potentially get funding.
Oh, I see.
right? And they don't understand what happened after that. So, you know, when you do something like that, and I've given so much here, and out of good intent, pure intent, and I've done nothing but connect you with the right people.
Yeah.
Where I thought it was going to help you, and I never advertised it, which I never did. You know, I never posted up all the things that myself and my team did. I did a lot for these guys personally, and they went out and they did that. You know, the part of me said, man, I can't work with people like you.
Right.
You know, because what are you going to teach other people?
Right.
And, you know, for them, shortly after that, huge opportunities arose. And I never went out of my way to screw anybody. I don't ever do that.
Yeah.
But they weren't the first person I thought of, you know, because of that. And I'm like, man, you know, and I talked to the person afterwards. You know, we had conversations afterwards. And I said, well, what happened? You know, you could have just called me, man. You got my personal cell phone number. We could have worked this. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And their response back was, yo, you know, I'm hungry. And I was like, okay, so this, like, all that other stuff. And I just, you know, called this person a couple of weeks ago, offered to pay for education for them because we wanted to push them to leadership. Just the whole thing kind of was very disappointing for me. But, you know, it's one person, one thing. It's not everybody. So you just refocus, you recollect, and say, cool, man. All right.
Yeah.
You know, and I never closed the door completely. I just said, you know, we kind of got to figure out where we go from here, homie, because there's something bigger. And we both got to be cognizant of that. And I understand you're going through a difficult time, maybe financially, but this is not you, 100%. And we got to get your head right, and let me get you connected with more people. And then it's slowly working back that trust both ways. But, you know, you're right. You're telling the stories really difficult. The stories are very sad, very tough. But at the same time, it's just, there's so many things that pop up. Like, I'll give you a great example. There's one family who's that we're working with, and they have a daughter who's developed a mental illness, a serious mental illness, because of either genetics and drug use and victimization. And we'd work with this family, great people, beautiful people, you know, salt of the earth. Daughter has obviously some drug problems, but she's not she's got a kid herself, 5-year-old kid. And we dealt with them. And this is the impacts of George Floyd that people don't understand. And I don't expect them to, but it's important to tell the story like this. So we were dealing with the family. And we had a great relationship with the family. The daughter had gone missing. We'd found her. We'd reconnected them. And the daughter gone missing, ended up in a trap house. All right, funny enough, crazy enough, this is when I'm working on the streets. All right, so daughter goes missing, but I'm working with the family from before. Just so happens I knew the family, so I'm like, look, I'm gonna kind of head this up a little bit because I got some relationships there. Through some good community work from another officer, we find out that this daughter's in a trap house. Go to the trap house, and for those you don't know, a trap house is pretty much like a drug stash spot. All right, it's like where bad guys will, quote unquote, bad guys will keep their guns, drugs. It's just a spot nobody really belongs to. So they got this this trap house set up. Mom is losing her mind because her daughter's been missing for 3 or 4 days. Last seen asking for change at a certain area. So somebody in the neighborhood calls up a good officer and says, look, I kind of know where she is. She's in this trap house. We show up, and crazy enough, there was this group of OGs that I had dealt with 10 years ago, but we had a great relationship. And as soon as I walk up, they start pointing like this. They knew why I'm there.
Wow.
So we managed to get the girl out with no issue, bring her back to her house. She's okay. Family's obviously happy. But I got to go back like 2 weeks later to go gather some more information. And I go back, gather some information, talk to the family. I learn more about how this person ended up the way that they did. It's a mental illness. It's a serious one. Then a couple weeks later, I hear from, I do a checkup just to see how the family is. So I kind of run them in our systems in case I got to go up and follow up for some other services. And I see there's this report put in by another police officer. So I go and I talk to the officer. I said, hey, man, I've been dealing with this family for a little bit. What's the deal? I'm going to go pop in and check up on them today. And the officer says, man, he goes, you know, and these are 2 white officers, all right? They said, man, we went there because the daughter went missing again. She went off for meds and she was in the park across the street. So they're like, we got out there, and this female is a person of color. So like, we got out there and we're trying to calm her down. And she's like, somebody comes out with a cell phone and starts recording us saying, you know, you got to stop picking on people of color, and all of a sudden recording these officers who are trying to corral her in. Now, what people don't know is that clip can go viral, okay? The biggest issue I had with that was that family, the entire time I was dealing with them, did not want their neighbors to know that their daughter was going through these type of episodes. So anytime I had to deal with them, I'd have to park down the street and walk up to the door.
Right.
Out of respect for them.
Yes.
They're a normal family. You know, they have this unfortunate illness in there, but when people come out and do stuff like that, it's not about us, man. Okay, we get it. It's about that poor girl who's going through a serious mental illness. You know, she's got a 5-year-old kid. Who knows where that's going to end up? That's going to be on the internet forever. And her mom, who's been struggling with this entire life, who's now going to have to care for somebody forever. as to potentially hear from the rest of her family and friends, oh, we saw so and so on,
It's
on
it's a
Six
spectacle.
Buzzard.
It becomes a spectacle now.
That's the stuff where I'm like, yo, okay, you want to film me, go crazy, but have some respect for the other people, man. You don't know any of that backstory, right? But people want to do their part. Whatever, man. There's no answer for it. But those are the things where I'm like, this is great. Like, this person doesn't already have a hard enough time in life.
Right.
Like, what are you proving here?
Yeah.
Go make a
rough.
complaint at a police station.
Yeah.
Like, you can do that. There's tons of ways you can make a complaint on an officer. You want to record it, go nuts, but be mindful of the other half.
Well, people are not thinking
because
that,
they're
right?
in frame.
Yeah.
They're right there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Let me just quickly do a segue here,
Yeah,
just
man.
for the time. I know you have some stats there.
I do.
I actually want to look at those stats. So these are stats, again, that we can compare almost. Could you even point as a reference from things that we talked about from 2019? Like,
Oh, yeah, maybe. There might be in there. So these stats I'm going to give you are from our gang exit referrals. So the
Okay.
people that we've had come into the gang exit program
yes.
and that we're currently either working with or have worked with in the past.
Yes.
And remind me at the end to talk about the expectations because I'll share that. And that's a great,
Okay.
Okay.
great way
You
to-
guys heard it here. Hot off the press, King
King
Chin stats right now. Let's go. Start.
So we've had about 368 people between August and December of 2020 enter our program. We're now over 600. Out of that number, about 75% are male, 25% are female. Out of that, between the age of 0 to 12 is only 2.2%. So it's a really small portion of it. Between 13 to 17 is about 11%, but the majority of them have been 18 up.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
18 and up have been majority. We're looking at
Right.
a huge portion. 88%, 87% of them have been 18 and up. I'll tell you through our conversations what I think is happening is that, after 18, are you in school anymore?
No.
Real life hits, right? You have
Yeah.
no structure. You have
Yeah.
no positive adult role model. Nobody really checking in on you. So once they get out to the real world, and for most of the people who are getting involved at the age of 18, they've been involved in some serious violent crimes if they're still in the lifestyle. So now the reality of tomorrow existing is a question to ask. So they're really motivated by pursuing something else out of life because structure's taken away. Maybe they're feeling repercussions for past actions. Maybe they feel like the association is going to catch up to them. And they're realizing, man, I want a life outside of this. So our most receptive population has been 18 and up.
Okay.
For the risk factors, when we spoke about last time, there's 5 categories, right? 0 to 6 is your family. 6 to 12 is what happens in school. 9 to 15 is what happens with your friends. 15 and up is kind of what happens as you as an individual finding yourself. And then 18 and up is the community as a whole. So all that conglomerating. When we looked at kind of the risk factors to what's the most identified at what age, the numbers make complete sense. So in your family, 0 to 6, 36% of people in our program have identified that as a problematic time. So they said we had risk factors at that time. 36%, 0 to 6. Then as they get to school, 37% of them had said, okay, we had problems here too. All the risk factors for the school. Then between 6 to 12 to 9 to 15, the peer group, 74% of the people in our program said this is where a lot of their problems were.
That age.
So we see a jump from, in the family 0 to 6, 36%. Then you go 9 to 12 with your school, you're seeing 37% to almost a double. Actually, an exact double between your peer group. So we see this massive jump between 9 to 15, huge jump.
Wow.
Right? And then from there, as you become an individual, 80% of them have recognized their own problems.
Right.
And then as they go into the community, we see 87%. So the numbers continually grow up, which tell a great story. I don't mean great in terms of great. They tell a very true story of, without checking those risk factors off at an early age, we got a huge problem. That is common in 87% of the people we have.
That's based off 2020?
This is from August of 2020 to December of 2020. So it's really recent, and this is the first place we're sharing them publicly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ron, if we were looking at 2019...
We don't have stats for 2019.
Wow. Okay.
These type of stats have never been collected.
Wow.
Ever.
Okay.
So we're the first organization in the world to actually look at these stats in an active live group.
You can build on this now.
1,000,000%, because this tells us where we invest going forward.
Yeah.
And if you look at all that, 34% at the beginning of ages, right? The natural common sense thing is, look, if we don't check a problem when it's 34%, it's going to get to 88.
It will eventually, yeah.
So we need to check it when it's a manageable number.
Yes.
Right? So where do we innovate? School. Where do we innovate? Family structure. Where do we jump? That's nothing to do with the police.
Yeah.
Like, we have nothing to do with this. The whole tail end of this is, by the time it gets to us, it's too late.
Right.
We're a great broker because we get the most impact from when we're dealing with people when it's too late.
Yes.
Then we can refer out, which is exactly the space we want to be in, is let us be the brokers. Let us be that middleman.
Right.
But let's find everybody else to supplement in. When it comes down to the actual categories, I'll just give you the highlights of like the top 3. So within the family category, from that 0 to 6 age range, 58% of them said they had family disorganization, which just meant broken homes and alcohol abuse and drug abuse, right?
Right.
I can expect that.
Yeah.
36% said they had a lack of adult or parental role models. Makes complete sense. And then 33% of them said they had a family member who's in a gang.
Okay.
Directly, yeah. Wow.
Right? So 33% of our people have said, yeah, we have family that's got gang ties.
Wow.
As they get older, that same group, when it comes down to school, 70% of them had poor school performance. So they checked it off and said, we didn't do well at school. 43% of them said they had a low attachment to school, and 31% said they had high levels of antisocial behavior. All right? And that makes complete sense, because at 0 to 6, you're looking at a broken family home. They don't have a positive relationship with anybody. They don't have that mentorship, leadership that they need to take them through. Then they get to school. What's the expectation of success here? They don't even know what a positive relationship looks like.
Yes.
They've never even experienced it, right?
Yeah.
So they're in a way that they need, I guess, to succeed. Then they get to school and they don't do well. And what happens to kids who don't do well?
Keep falling.
5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That's
Make
kind
sure
of
they don't distract the rest of the class.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, no insult to education system. It's just, it's
I know,
what we're seeing.
Right.
Then as they get older and they get into the peer group category, so now with their friends, which is where we're seeing the big jump,
Yes.
right? From school to peer group is huge. And then from individual, it's big again. But what we're seeing then is 73% of them said at that age they had friends who used drugs or were in gangs. All right. So again, it's more of that exposure, more of that cycle, more of the peer group. And when you think about a kid like that who's, 0 to 6, connected to nobody, broken home, gets to school, doesn't connect with school,
Yeah.
out to play. I think we talked about the last podcast where they're playing now and then they find people like themselves.
Yes.
Exact same cycle. Now those friends are using drugs because they're exposed to it. They have access to it.
It accelerates it all.
Yeah. And then they have friends who use drugs or in gangs is 73%. Interaction with delinquent peers is 61%. And all that means is, do you have friends that have been in trouble with the police?
Right.
So 61% have said, yeah, man, this is kind of who I'm with. And then street socialization is do I hang out with gang members? Or people who identify as a gang. So 60%, more than half, are saying, yeah, we do.
Wow.
So
That's a huge number.
That's
we're
high,
seeing
man.
really clear
Yeah.
stories here.
Yeah.
And then it gets to them as an individual when they're trying to find out who they are.
Okay.
Right? So now it's 15 and up. And 60% of them all have prior delinquency, which means they've all been charged at some point or involved with the police. 60% of them.
To some degree.
Before the age of 15.
Yeah.
Then we see, which is extremely alarming for us, is 60% of them roughly say they've had illegal gun ownership. So
60%.
60% roughly of the ones we're working with said they've had illegal gun ownership by the age of 15. And why that's so important for us is it shows us that, look, if we have a population that's over the age of 18, majority of our people, 88% are over the age of 18, and 60% of them had previous gun ownership, we're getting the right people.
Yes.
We're 100% getting the right people for this. So it gives us a lot of hope to say, okay, we're on to something.
Right.
Right. If we'd seen a lower number there, I don't think I would have been as excited. So it's a weird thing to get excited for.
Yeah,
but for me, it's like, okay, there's
on the right track.
There's something here.
Yeah.
You're looking in the right area.
100%.
Yeah.
And then the last one is 43% of them said they got into drug trafficking. All right, and that's on the individual.
These are high numbers.
These are high, man.
Wow.
And then the last category is the community category. And in the community, what they're saying is 75% of them have said that they live in a high crime neighborhood and they have a presence of gangs in their neighborhood. And then 68% of them said they got availability of firearms in their neighborhood. And 60% of them said, I can get dope in my neighborhood as well. Right?
Wow.
So the story tells itself. And we spoke about it and we said, what is the core element here? To me, the core element is poverty. I can't stress that enough. If we had to invest in anything, it's poverty reduction, it's economic development, it's realigning education, it's redefining what leadership looks like.
Creating new options.
What does life look like outside of school? That whole narrative for that 5% needs to be redesigned.
Yes.
To say, look, life after school doesn't necessarily mean college, university, job.
Okay, so I want to throw my 2 cents on that. That could mean a chess club.
It could.
That could mean after school. You have some tutoring. It could be kind of anything. It's another avenue. It could be some type of entry level employment, right? Some type of mentorship program. Who here is interested in business? Okay, look. So drug dealers, they're businessmen.
Yep.
You can break it down in a language they know. Okay, but let's give you an idea how to stay alive.
Yeah.
How to be able to make a good income, and it's just access to that information.
Access to info.
That's
education.
What it is. Yeah.
It's just how do we streamline? So even with us, this Project Engage, that's a huge part of it is bringing that information. So we got a whole bunch of private companies that want to come in. We're talking high-level companies.
It's amazing.
That have said, look, we want to contribute back. We want to do mentorship. We want to hire from these communities. We want to give them tools. And they're not doing it out of the line of, we feel sorry for these guys or PR things. What they're doing is they recognize there's talent here. In the world of innovation, you have to look for talent.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
This is a recruiting mission as much as it is many other things. And what we're identifying is, look, you got this gem over here, man, in a place where majority things are not doing well. Have you seen this person? Imagine what they could do in an environment where you're built to thrive.
Look at their drive to thrive. Look at their their skill set, their talent.
Yeah,
I know.
There's this kid in Toronto. His name is. He doesn't work with us by all means. He's not a gang member. He's not whatever. I was supposed to do a TED talk last year, and the COVID screwed it up, so we didn't do it right. So I was lined up to do TED talk the month it was supposed to happen. COVID came in, they canceled the TED talk. But I met this kid. His name is Arnev Shah. Not a gang member, just to clarify. Not a criminal kid. But he was supposed to do a talk there. This kid, when I went there, must have been like 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I'm in the way TED Talks work is you come to the back, they set you up, they got a coach that works. It's a whole professional operation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm back there and in walks this kid, and it's myself, a director of Google, all these other people, right? And this kid walks in and I see him. I'm like, hey, you looking for your mom? He's like, no, I'm here to give a talk. I go, what? Yeah. So this guy became my buddy right off of the bat, right? I love dealing with like kids like that age, you know what I mean? With a little bit of pep to the step.
Yeah. I'm a keynote speaker, fool.
So I walk in, I go, yo, and this kid walks in, and there's a director from Google there.
Yeah.
And as soon as she walks in, she goes right to him and she goes, hey, Arnav, how are you? And I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Right.
Like I don't know any of these people, but so I see him and I go, hey man, I'm like, kid, what are you up to, man? What do you do?
Yeah.
And this kid's got this whole story. He's an incredible kid, man. I still keep in touch with him. Because he's going to be a billionaire and I want to be part of that crew.
Oh, yeah.
But this kid, I don't want to screw up his story too much, but he was diagnosed with cancer at a very young age.
Okay.
And his family took him on a trip to India and to other countries and said, look, we want you to experience the world with cancer. This kid's a fighter. And he goes to India. And this kid's so special to me, man. You just got to meet him. Maybe I'll kick him over to you guys, man. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And this kid comes over and, he comes back from India and other parts of the world. And he comes back and he says, you know what? He's like, yeah, I got cancer. He's like, but I sleep on a warm bed. And he's like, I saw extreme poverty there. Wow. So he goes, you know what? He says, what happens if you sleep on the floor for 30 days? You reappreciate your bed. What happens if you don't drink clean water for 30 days? You appreciate. So he started to develop software to help mitigate some of these problems on a world scale.
This 12-year-old kid.
12-year-old kid. Now he's 14. He just turned 14. We exchanged text messages a couple days ago, and I'm like, yo, what are you into now?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm developing an app for elderly homes where they can immediately have their temperature checked to see if there's changes in their temperature for if COVID happens. Okay. So he wants to develop this tech that where they wear this patch and it goes to their phone. And
some rapid test, If
their temperature fluctuates, it's the indicator. He's like, look, we can get them connected. So this kid's a tech kid. The reason why I bring him up is that's a gem.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, that's a gem that lives right here.
Yes.
That he's here, and he's not like he's coming from super wealthy family.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like
this kid's coming from just some different place, but he's right here.
Yes.
And he's got the attention of all these, the fact that the Google director came
amazing.
in and he's right here.
Yeah, man.
And I'm like, look, this is the talent we have. And big companies are really good at finding talent, but sometimes they need people in the streets that are saying like, yo, I know you as a big company. Hey, let me introduce you to this kid.
Yes.
All right. Let me introduce you to this family. Let me introduce you to this mom. You know what this mom did, man? She raised 4 kids on her own, figured out 2 jobs, and she's smart. She's got this dream project.
Yes.
It's all about network. Now I kind of understand the whole term. Your network is your net worth, but you got to take the worth out of it.
Right.
Right. You become a really good integrator, a really good connection point. Yo, I know this person. I know that person. It's just so wild. And the thing I know been going on, but I think it's so important when I talked about the whole thing where I really learned that we have high expectations of ourselves and high expectations of other people. I think we need to just kind of lower our own standards on that, and not to lower the expectation of people. It's because we had this. So we had a gang member who was part of our gang exit strategy, and we worked with him. And my partner Jason Conda was working with him quite closely. And this kid, we don't hear from him for a couple of weeks. On his own, he calls our office up one day and he's talking to Jason and he says, man, he's so pumped up. He's like, dude, I had to keep you in the loop, man. And the crazy part of this is now what we've transitioned to is with all our gang exit referrals, one of the first questions we ask, do you have a social insurance number?
No.
Mm-hmm.
that just came by
Wow.
being agile and understanding, because one of the things we do is we try to do employment.
Very smart question.
Right. So
Yeah.
what Jason had learned through the course of doing it all, he's like, dude, none of these guys have social insurance numbers.
Yeah.
So his first question is right off of the bat when I hear him on the phone talking to people is, hey man, do you have a social insurance number? No. All right, this is how we're going to get it for you.
Right.
And so then he helped this kid get a SIN.
Yeah.
We connected him with some job opportunities, and this kid called up 2 weeks later, and Jason got off the phone and he was so pumped up, and he's like, man, he goes, you wouldn't believe the phone call I got. I go, what's up? He's like, dude, that kid called me. He got a job at a place where he had to bring in shopping carts and clean up the shopping carts for COVID and re-put them. And he's like, this kid was ecstatic.
Wow.
He acted like he won the lottery. And for us and our team, when we talked about that experience, we're like, dude, we have such high expectations that we got to focus on these small wins. That's the first legitimate job this guy ever had that he did on his own.
Crawl, walk, run, right?
Yeah. So with us, we brought everything back in where everybody wants this home run story. We want this kid to make $1 million.
Yes.
Listen, home run means something different to different people.
Yes.
So we got to recognize with the person, what's the home run today?
Well, I'll
Yes.
say this, Ron. You did it again, man.
Oh,
you did it
thanks.
again. I'll say, Ron, to me, what you guys are doing is incredible.
Thanks, man.
It's incredible. And I asked if the media was involved in this, because to me, this is something that needs to kind of go out, right? I mean, you guys are actively doing things for the community to change and make a difference.
Trying.
For you as an individual right now, man, you are completely contagious, man. I mean,
Thanks, man.
I want to hear more and more what you have to say.
Yeah.
And you do an excellent job. I follow your Instagram. I follow the posts that you put on LinkedIn. I follow your social media, and I think you're actually carving an incredible path.
Thank you.
To help with the situation.
Which you should probably throw out your social media right now.
Yeah, it's at Toronto Cop. I got the best handle, man.
It is.
Honestly, I don't know how nobody took that, but that's the handle, at Toronto Cop.
That's right. And also, if I remember reading some earlier posts, aren't you trying to, or if you're already doing it right now, a podcast?
Yeah, we're doing a podcast, an Engage 416 podcast, where exactly what you were talking about was the idea was that we wanted to have on the podcast community members.
Yes.
We wanted to bring them in, but COVID screwed that up. So hopefully when COVID opens up, because at least we can control the narrative, right? And I don't mean the narrative in terms of, I mean, just look, no ill will here. Just tell us what it is.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's Engage 416.
Engage 416. And
podcast.
This on Spotify.
Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you go on.
This is, it means, but it's an authentic engagement.
Yes.
No, podcast, it's this is probably something really perfect. You can just have conversation. Even if you just don't videotape it, you can still get that information out there.
Yeah, these issues, the other problem with the media is that they want to take a really issue you need to understand in depth and condense it to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I know.
You can't do that.
No.
You got to have these conversations to say, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, look, man, I really want to thank you again for coming on the show. Very insightful as well. What we can maybe even do is maybe do another yearly annual podcast to see what the results for 2021 would be.
Sure.
But I'm 100% very intrigued in this whole situation. I guess one last question. If anybody's listening and wanted to actually help, right? You're a business, you're a person that wants to volunteer. How do they go about doing that? Can they do it?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, how?
So if you go to our website, which is the big push today, engage416.ca, you can get a hold of us through there. You can send us a message, or you can just email us at gangprevention, all one word, at torontopolice.on.ca, or connect with me on social media, send me a DM. Unfortunately, I don't check DMs all the time. All my social media has my email address.
Yes.
Send me an email.
For those 50 plus, DM is direct message.
Yeah. So I don't check them anymore. It's just it's not that I'm like,
Gore, did you write that down?
It's not that I'm overly popular. I just don't have the capacity. Like I kind of peeled back from social media for a bit because it was I had to focus on the actual job. And social media is a machine, man. So I had to refocus a little bit and say, you know what? I'll let the momentum die a little bit here, but let me push back to the real work and see what happens. And they can either do that. So engage416.ca, at Toronto Cop on Twitter or Instagram. Send me a DM or email from there.
Yes.
And then we can definitely figure something out. And again, we're super agile. We're super open. We're not hard bound to anything.
Perfect.
We'll throw this out. King Chin is looking for someone to help him manage his social media. If you feel that you got a gift in there, you got a good heart, and you're about these things that he's about, hit him up.
And thank you guys, man. Honestly, I love coming in. You guys are great guys, man. I think you guys are living the dream, man. So I'm really proud of what you guys have done, if that means anything. But I'm super impressed, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Chhinzer, thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll talk soon.
AKA King Chin.
Make sure to drop by next week.
Let's go.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Let's go!
It's time to give a shout out to our sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by Sentinel Security Plus. For all your premium security needs, visit sentinelsecurityplus.com.